All right, welcome back to the Jordan Garber NOW Podcast. You guys are listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, as well as many other platforms. And we are here with the current Cloud9 Wrestling Heavyweight Champion, none other than Bobby Brennan. Bobby, man, welcome to the program. Great to have you on. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Jordan. Thanks for having me on. I really do appreciate this, man.
No problem at all. It's actually great to have someone like yourself on. You've been wrestling for 4 years. You have a great resume on your hands, and it actually all started with a very well-respected wrestler in the Illinois area by the name of Matt Cage. Kind of just tell us about those humble beginnings, getting your foot in the door, and just getting to your first match.
So it's funny that you kind of asked that because, uh, so down here in North Dakota, I'm based out of Minot. Uh, there's no wrestling schools in North Dakota, and a lot of kids are really lucky now that there's stuff like the Academy over in Minnesota. I didn't have stuff like that, so I had to learn under a wrestler, and obviously it was Matt Cage. He took me under his wing. I used to drive like 2.5 hours to like a show based out of Williston. I would train there. I would drive the shows in Fargo, Botno. I would train here in Minot and just kind of worked on the basics and stuff. And how Cage viewed it was the fact that if he can get enough of the basics down to the point it's pretty much acceptable enough that I can learn on the job. So I learned my basics. I learned how to bump, run ropes. I learned how to uh, execute moves, and then pretty much from there on, I ended up getting my first match, and I worked with Matt Cage. He was under he was under a different gimmick though. He was under his masked character gimmick. So we did that at the opener of the show, and then kind of from there on, I just kept working until now. So
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And you know, it all began for you in Fully Loaded Wrestling by working the likes of Christian Rose, the masked character, uh, Mason Mayhem, working with him facing Guns and Beer, Darren Corbin, Tommy Lee Curtis. I can go on and on and on. How is those matches at the Vegas Motel? Because that was one of your first venues in Minot, in your hometown. So working in your hometown, did you have a lot of friends and family come along? And what did you learn in the beginning in terms of chemistry?
So, first of all, the Vegas Motel is probably almost my favorite venue to this day, just for the sole purpose of the balconies, because the balconies ended up playing such a huge role. I did have friends and family that would show up, and they would all stand on the balconies, and then they ended up making a banner and renamed it the Buckshot Balcony because I went by Buckshot for my first 3 years. So they named it the Buckshot Balcony. I've actually been thrown from that balcony before during a ladder match.
Holy
There's a
crap.
couple videos of, yeah, I got thrown from the first one, so it was, I would say it's about like a 14-foot drop. I had Guns and Beer actually throw me, and then we've done that. So yeah, that venue means a lot to me.
Was it
What was the
Bogart
second?
or Duke Cornell?
What's up?
Was it Bogart or was it Duke
Oh,
Cornell who threw you?
Bogart or Duke.
Bogart.
It was Duke and Joey Anderson. Those were the two at the time. That was Guns and Beer,
Yeah.
and then landed on Kenny Sutra. God, Christian Rose. I think we landed on a bunch of guys. I think like a big brawl broke out, and that's how a big crowd formed, and we ended up throwing me into them, knocked over a bunch of security guards, everything in between. It was
Man,
good times.
definitely, that's crazy. Fully loaded wrestling. Definitely, I almost went there to a show in Fargo actually, and I wasn't able to make it because I actually worked that day. But I'm definitely once this whole pandemic and all this stuff that we're going through, man, just
Hmm.
settles down. I'm definitely gonna be checking out some of that. Just all kinds of wrestling in North Dakota because it's a very underrated scene. And I do want to talk about the Minnesota scene as well, kind of transitioning on. You worked against a wrestler by the name of Sterling Bond. Now, when this guy trained, I started talking to him because I used to travel with the likes of Danny Duggan on the road to those shows in Minnesota and watch some matches. And this is right when Sterling Bond started, and I just knew he had a lot of potential and he had a bright future. So you worked him and Darren Corbin too, like such a great guy. So what was it like working for Seven Star for that show there in Fridley?
So it's funny because Seven Star was my first out of town show. If I remember right, I did that show, and that was the first time that I was going outward due to the fact that Fully Loaded shut down, like, before that show. Fully Loaded had a couple different closures. They went through a couple different bosses, but that's like a whole other thing. But yeah, the first closure, I said I gotta go expand, so I went to Minnesota, and then I met and wrestled Sterling Bond. I've worked with Darren Corbin prior, but we wanted to do something different, so we were gonna do originally it was a triple threat match they had us scheduled for, and they said, you know what, Sterling Bond and Darren Corbin will tag team, and they'll face Brennan, and Brennan doesn't have a partner, so Brennan just pulls out a broom and says, I can beat you guys with my tag partner being a broom. And then, yeah, I ended up tag teaming with the broom, and I won that night. So
That's crazy, and I think I remember watching that match too. I think it was somewhere on the internet, but Illinois. You also started doing more out of town shows from there on. You worked in Fargo at the Southwest Youth Hockey Arena, and you also did more shows at your favorite venue, the Vegas Motel, before making your debut in 01 USA. Where Stephen King, not the author, unfortunately, but the wrestler,
not the author.
He defeated you there in Maroa, I believe. Is that how you even pronounce it? But 01.
I think it's how you say it. I didn't really know how to say the town's name.
But 01, man, for a young person like yourself, that's pretty good to have on your resume. So how did that stand out for you?
So being at 01 was really cool. I was really young when I went there. I wish I'd kind of be able to go back there and reprove myself. I was just so young at the time. I met Bob Holly. He was on the show. Surprisingly, whatever people say about Bob Holly,
amazing guy.
I can't say the same. He is so nice. Like, everybody has said, he's just kind of loud and he might be kind of mean, but he's a really nice guy. Gave a lot of good advice. He was real polite. Talked about weightlifting some. I met Mia Yim. She watched my match. If you look at some of the pictures in the background, you can see her standing there in the doorway observing. And then, it was a good experience. I like it down there. Really cool people down there. The Warhorse, Jake Parnell. I was buddies with him. We used to work together at Fully Loaded. And then he was obviously the 01 champion at the time. So it was a great experience, man. I hope one day I can go back, really.
Yeah, man. And I like how you brought up Bob Holly, because there's an experience I did with him in Wisconsin where I kind of came into kind of a little like afraid, because I'm like, oh boy, how is he going to act if I ask him for an interview? Yeah, you hear stories
about him.
But the thing is I asked him for an interview, and he was so honest with me. Like, he's like, I'll be honest, man, I totally don't want to do it. But I'll tell you what, you seem like a good guy. And, like, we had a conversation about NASCAR, and then he, like, introduced me to his wife, who's a really, really nice person. And, like, just the whole experience with Bob was nice. We talked about, like, sports, NASCAR, and then he sent me, like, I was going through a tough time in my life, losing a family member and all that, and Bob Holly sends me this long message on Twitter. He sent me a message on Twitter saying about how when I met him, I was really respectful to him and his wife, and, like, from Bob Holly, getting that, like,
that's pretty cool.
That was really awesome, because you know what, a legend like that, to say that you showed respect, like, holy crap, that means I'm going in the right direction. And if I go to wrestling school with that same attitude, man, the sky's gonna be the limit for me, no matter how small I am, because, like, you need charisma in this business, and I'm not trying to oversay myself, but I know I have that. When they say you got it, I might not have it physically, but verbally, man, I know I can do something on the mic. So, like, talking to Bob Holly, he really boosted my spirits, because it's always, people second guess themselves in this business all the time, but when you overcome that second guessing, that's how people like yourself too as well become very successful. That's for sure. I'm sure you'd agree.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, for sure, Bob Holly, he's a good dude. I like Bob Holly.
You also came back here to our neck of the woods, where Now Studios is located in Winnipeg, Manitoba, making your debut at the Palomino Club. I have a lot of stories there, man. There's a lot of times where I had a lot of snake bites. They have their snake bite shot, which is like their tequila, and it's something else. And like I would just hang out with my friends there all the time, and then they ran the wrestling show there, and then it was raining. I don't know if you remember that. It was raining.
I remember because I went and tore down the
45
ring, had to set it back up into the inside of like the dance floor type area.
Yeah, it rained inside, and you guys had to do that at a very fast time because the rain was going down. I wasn't there, but I heard about this, and you were working Roy Flash Gordon that night. But before you talk about that, the rain's pouring down. You have a sellout right now. What's going through your mind? Like, are you just trying to get everybody on board and just say, fuck it, let's do this?
Like, before I have the match or after the match or when I'm getting the ring moved?
Let's talk about the ring before the match. Like, you getting that ring down during the ring. Like, you're in a sold-out, very well-known venue here in Winnipeg. That was filmed for Shaw TV, as a matter of fact. They got a lot of news headlines. So, like, during this whole time, what is going through your mind? It might be it kind of seems fucked up to you. It's raining, and you got to get this in 30 minutes. It seems impossible. You guys somehow do it. So, what was your mindset the whole time during that?
So, when I was sitting before the match, we were actually nervous it was going to start raining. I actually was able to get through my match because I think I was the opener. We did the opening, and then, or we were like the second or third match. And I just remember we had to go do we had to go out there and present ourselves as the tournament entries and stuff. And I remember I was already nervous. I was nervous about if it was going to rain during our match. And luckily it didn't, but it ended up doing it later on, obviously. And I remember I was just really off that night. It was probably to me, it was probably one of my worst performances. Roy was so good, and he was just so fast, and I just remember I got kicked, and I remember it just I remember just feeling off, and as soon as I got kicked, and I got kicked pretty hard, and I was just like, oh, that just all the energy sapped out of me. I remember just sucking wind, and I never get tired in the ring. I never I could go for 30 minutes completely straight. I never gas out. But I remember it was 2 minutes in, and I got kicked he did a spinning back kick, and just connected kind of low. And I remember just sucking wind. I just couldn't do anything.
Yeah, you know what? It's like that feeling when when I was a kid in school, me and my friends would go around and play fight, and then you get punched in the stomach, and then you go through the ground. It was probably one of those things you feel that pain when you get punched in the stomach. Those back kicks, you got to be careful. I remember. As a ref, I took a really nasty clothesline once, and it was my own fault, from Sidney Steele. And he just told me to stand there in the middle, and me moving my neck around like an idiot, he got me right on the nose. And still to this day, I kind of feel it. I got hit pretty damn hard, and hey man, that's my own fault. But you know what? It looked legit, and man, I don't know if it was filmed, but it should have been. It was a really good ending to the match. And you know what? Sometimes you gotta put your body on the line and do that. And you don't know it until after. But at the end, I screwed up. But hey, it still looked good somehow, some way. So I can't really complain. It's just another experience in the book. But I love sitting in the studio, man, just as a podcast or just hearing these stories because, it's not every day where you hear a wrestling show rains and everything. And I wouldn't worry about your match with Gordon because I actually still saw that. And I still thought it was pretty good, in my opinion. So,
well, I'm glad you still enjoyed it.
Yeah, no problem. Every match isn't going to be match of the year candidate, right? Every podcast, I've had so many shitty ones. I interviewed John Cena Sr. once, actually, John Cena's dad.
Oh, really?
And it was probably one of my worst performances as a journalist and podcaster. My audio was off. Imagine how I sound now, but literally on your lowest volume setting on your phone, and it just sounded like shit.
That's a shame.
Who knows? I hope his son didn't listen to it. Certainly, that would be a shame. But
yep.
Because it doesn't really get much better than that. But
yeah.
Anyways, Moving forward, let's talk about your experience in Midwest All-Star Wrestling in Minnesota, also MWE. Let's talk about MAW first. You had quite a few matches there in the American Legion, also in St. Paul, Minnesota, and in
Yep.
Savage, Minnesota. So talk about that whole promotion altogether and its developments.
So for MAW, MAW has to be it's like almost like my second love. Like I love that promotion so much, and like I don't know if any of like the management or a lot of the guys I've worked with will even hear this, but honestly, I love doing everything there. Like those guys gave me an opportunity when really nobody else was. So after 7 Star I only was able to do one match there, and then they just kind of went quiet. They started doing other stuff and just never really went back. But I went back to Minnesota then when my little brother became a wrestler, and they booked me and him together, and we always wanted to do that. So we ended up taking a train. We went down there, we performed, and then we hopped back on a train, and they said they liked their stuff, and geez, we've been going back out like almost ever since. And then I became we ended up doing some tag stuff. We did our friend or foe tag team over there. It's part of me and my little brother Jack Ledger. That's our tag team. We do friend or foe. We did that for a little bit. We ended up breaking up, as as the name friend or foe. We don't ever know if we like each other or not. And then I ended up joining a group named The Movement. It consisted of a couple of guys: Paul Verk, Shane Black, Craven Knight. There were so many. Riley Jackson. There were so many a part of the original Movement group, but oh god, I had so much fun. Like I wrestled JDX there. That was my first out of town main event that I ever did. And shout out to JDX because he's awesome. That dude looks like $1,000,000. He moves great. He's just a good human being too. It's overall just so nice. I have a lot of respect for JDX. So shout out to JDX. Shout out to everybody that was a part of the group and the movement. Yeah, I just got nothing but positive things to say about MAW. I really hope when they start running again that I can head back out there and continue my career with them. And then for MWE, I didn't do as many shows for them. I did meet fun people along the way with them, though. Me and my brother did friend or foe for them. We wrestled a tag team with Ethan Matthews and another guy named Brock, and then we ended up having probably one of my favorite tag matches of all time. So, yeah, MWE has a pretty special place too, but I wouldn't say as much as MAW, just as I was there much longer, and I've done a lot more things and a lot more matches.
Well, let's save like one of the best in your career, best friends in your career for last in this interview, and let's talk about Cloud9 Wrestling. If you want, you can stick around with us and talk about some news for the extra 5 minutes, but your experience with Cloud9 Wrestling, man, you're the current heavyweight champion, facing and beating the best in the company. Kind of share your experience and thoughts on not just your time there, but the whole startup together.
So, my time with Cloud9 it's been good. It's almost just like it's what Fully Loaded should have been. It's like we try making better decisions than what Fully Loaded did. They made a lot of mistakes. And we just tried to correct them, and honestly, I enjoyed my time there. I loved working with a lot of the Canadian talent and the Nebraska talent that comes up, like Duke Cornell, Joey Anderson. It's just such a unique mix. I've always said that I think Cloud9 has the most unique card in the Midwest, as we're not consistently made of just North Dakota wrestlers, not of just Nebraska, Omaha guys. We're not made up of just strictly local Minnesota guys. We're a mix of like almost the entire Midwest. We got a little part of Minnesota. We got North Dakota, Canada. We have Nebraska. Like, we're almost just, you name it, we got someone from there. So it's just, I really enjoy being a part of Cloud9, and I'm so proud to be their second champion of all time, and then the longest reigning champion.
You know, let's say there's a show next Friday there at Cloud9 Wrestling, and it was either done in Berthold, Minot, or its other venue in Williston. Out of those venues, what is the best one in terms of crowd reaction and response? Which one would you rather like wrestle out of those three? Which is the best venue to do?
It's hands down mine out at the Clarion Hotel.
Hometown
Clarion
pride.
Yep, we call it the stadium. The building we perform is it's called the Coliseum. It's a part of the Cloud9. It's part of the Clarion Hotel. That's where Cloud9 is at, and it's such a big venue, and just the crowds get so loud, and just the Minot crowd is just so different. It's just one of the most unique crowds you'll ever be at. They're just so invested, and there's been wrestling here for so long. It's been consistently made up of almost the same guys that we planted our seed here years ago when I wasn't even involved, and when guys that I knew were just starting. Like, so that's what makes Minot just so special, is just that a lot of places don't get something like that, a hometown promotion that just kept evolving over time, passed on the new people, and had different influences. So yeah, I would say it's Minot.
Let's keep going on about Cloud9. Actually, you know, your last four matches, they were really awesome, and it's definitely it's more of a 2020 reflection as well, going into things with this whole pandemic and everything. But you wrestled AJ Sanchez at The Grudge, winning the title itself, and then you were successful in your 3 title defenses against Tommy Lee Curtis in Minot at the Clarion Hotel, and against Joseph Anderson and AJ Sanchez. So out of those 4 matches, you know, with this whole past year being what it's been, what are those 3 that have really been a huge standout to you? And because, you know, it's going to be a while since we have live crowds again, so reflecting back, out of those 4, which one would you pick as the match of the year candidate so far?
That's so hard because they're all just so special in their own right.
Memorable, too.
Like, they all have their own aspects, whether it was the first match with AJ, me taking the belt with, like, from the point I tried to lift him the entirety of the match. I try to pick him up in the beginning, can't do it, back gives out. I attempt again, I just barely get him up, but he rents the eyes and I go back down. And to the finally at the end when I stop him from going off the top rope and I load him to my shoulders and I got to lock 370 pounds to the middle of the ring. Just that match is so special. But then we go to Tommy Lee Curtis, somebody who I think is one of the most underrated wrestlers that a lot of companies should have took their shot with that guy. They should have put a belt on him. They should have utilized him more. He is so smart, and he's just, I love that match. It's just, he has so many different layers to his gimmick and just his overall performance. He has a manager, he has a henchman, he has the elastic bands, he has just, it's just so hard to describe just how well put together he is. And then Joseph Anderson, somebody who the first day I saw him, I saw something special in Joey. He was a brawler that he stood out. And I don't know, man, it felt like a fight, like when I was with him. And it was great because it was just like, it was something different. We just utilized different, I got to utilize my MMA and he utilized just straight vicious brutality-esque just approach to wrestling. And it was great. And we weren't in front of a huge crowd either. That's what was the awesome part. There was maybe 70 people there in a little Williston community area deal, and the crowd was just on fire. I had so much fun. So it's so hard to pick one, but if I had to say which one just off the top of my head, I'm just going to go with AJ just because that match was just such a shock. It just really was just, there was just so much to it that it's hard to explain.
Yeah, I totally hear you. Now, let's go into some news quick before we do the top three and do your plugs here. I just want to go through a quick news and notes and get a wrestler's perspective and commentary on one of them. And the topic I want you to commentate on is AEW has defeated NXT in the head-to-head battle. And it's, previously looking at this ratings battle, it's been very to the nose to nose. But right now, AEW Dynamite, 886,000 viewers. WWE NXT, 689,000 viewers. What are your thoughts? And as a wrestler, for just being a wrestler, not a fan, what product are you watching instead?
So, I don't really know how to feel about ratings overall. And, I just don't know. I don't think the numbers don't mean too much to me, but for some people, they kind of really mean a lot. I have a couple buddies who we talk about it once in a while and stuff. But
I hear you.
Is pretty much the question comes down to which product do I enjoy more as even just more of a wrestler and not as much as a fan.
Yeah, even things like that, even from a wrestler standpoint, what's getting more out of your study time?
Me, NXT. That's a no-brainer. Just there's over the last I would say just even the last 2 years, that's all I watched was NXT. I didn't watch anything else. Nothing did it for me. And just, guys, everyone in the era is so good. The Undisputed Era tag team matches, the Adam Cole matches he had with Gargano, the matches Gargano had with Ciampa, just, you can't tell me that the greatest wrestling in the world isn't right there. And just, I don't know, the AEW shows just, I don't mean to just say I don't enjoy the product, but a lot of the times it falls flat for me. I had really high hopes for a couple of the shows that I watched, and I ended up watching them, and they kind of just, I didn't get what I needed out of it. I almost walked out of it more exhausted. I just was by the time the show was over, I was like, dude, I almost don't even want to see the last 3 matches. And then yeah, it's just, I don't know, maybe it's just too much for me. Maybe I just can't absorb it all. But a lot of people enjoy it, and I think that's awesome. I think, don't get me wrong, I think at the end of the day, it's great that there are more major promotions out there now. There's more guys getting jobs. When Miro, Rusev, he ended up coming in.
That was a great debut.
How do you say it? Miro?
Miro, I think. I think it's Miro.
Miro? Okay, yeah. When he came in, I was glad to see he got signed because the guy has a job now. He's going to make a living. And I think that's awesome. I don't want anybody in wrestling to have to get released in a time when they probably shouldn't have been released in all reality.
Especially when you have to put food on the table.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is what they do. They're not, I would hate for these guys to have to go and work construction, have to go do, just regular stuff after being a wrestling celebrity. Isn't that just isn't right. And then guys, especially if they're talented too, it's awful. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be watching NXT over AEW. That's the answer.
Awesome stuff. Well, and other quick notes here, just for those other quick few seconds. Gerald Briscoe reveals his big announcement. MLW also signs LaPark Jr. and Will Hobbs signs with AEW. I'm going to discuss that on the news update. But before we get to your plugs, we always do something each and every interview, and it's called the Top 3. And it's always a positive top 3, and that's in terms of what we talked about earlier. Everyone, I should get a t-shirt that says this because it's my favorite question to ask. Chemistry. Who are the 3 top wrestlers that you've worked with so far in your career that you've had the best chemistry with overall?
Overall chemistry?
Yeah.
I would say AJ Sanchez. That's right there. Just, we mix very well. I would have to say Joey Anderson. Just overall, every time we touched that, even if we only got to have one singles match, every time that we touched outside of it,